dating abusive men. Stop dating.
Okay, so I know that I've mentioned before that I volunteer at a domestic violence shelter. And there are clearly a lot of people who don't really understand the timeline of these relationships. Now, obviously, anyone can be abusive, but I primarily see women who are being abused by men. And these women will start dating these guys, and they seem nice at first and completely normal. And then they'll start complaining about one of their friends, and they'll say, I don't like this friend, I think they're bad for you. And then they'll do the same thing to another friend, and then a relative. And they'll slowly start to isolate them from all of their friends and family until they don't have any left. And then if they have kids, they'll say, I really want you to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't want you to have to worry about working and raising kids. And so they won't have a career that gets developed. And then they'll start to say, why don't you let me be in control of all the checking accounts and credit cards? I don't want you to have to worry about finances. You're so busy. And then they'll go ruin her credit score. And a lot of times she won't even know about it. And then physical abuse will start to happen. And the first time that happens, they'll be super nice and super apologetic. And they say they'll never do it again. And months will go by until it happens again. And then slowly over time, it gets more and more frequent. But now these women have been completely financially isolated. They have young children. They have no one to go to and no resources. The most dangerous part of an abusive relationship is leaving the relationship. The risk of domestic homicide is highest when the victim is trying to leave. And so these women have nowhere to go, they have no money, and they risk their life if they try to leave. Anyone who says that women should just leave these relationships, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. It's very hard to leave. No one wakes up in the morning and decides to get into a relationship with someone who's abusive. These things happen slowly over time. You have people who've been abusive who are doctors and CEOs and attorneys and make tons of money and seem to have great lives. If someone hit your car while it was parked on the side of the road when you were off in a store somewhere and you weren't even in the car, would anyone blame you? No, they wouldn't. It wasn't your fault at all. Stop blaming victims of these situations. Stop blaming people for something that someone else did to them. Stop trying to blame victims and tell them to not date abusive people, and start getting mad at people for being abusive. Start holding men accountable and start doing things to create a society where we don't create a ton of abusive people to begin with. And statistically speaking, people who grow up in abusive homes are much more likely to end up in abusive relationships themselves. And red flags are often missed because a lot of that behavior was very normal to them growing up and they didn't know any better. And if you've ever been in an abusive relationship, don't ever let anyone make you feel like it was your fault.